Okay, I wanted to do a video letting everyone know the winner of the shirt from my previous Atypical Hiker video. It is the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. We woke up with 12-degree weather this morning, so well below freezing, and it's 26 degrees and sunny out right now. I had been letting my facial hair grow. I was going to shave it off today because we were going to go to a Christmas dinner tomorrow, but our hot water heater has frozen up. We have cold water, but the hot water is gone. So I put a heater in the little room that it's in, hoping that will do something. We'll see. But let's get to the video. Icebear, it looks like you're going to be getting the shirt, and you asked, you wanted to know how it came to be with the Fintan Mac whatever. I will explain that now. A few years ago, I had a Sony computer and I was not working, and I had an idea for a story. Now my story was my own. It wasn't copied from anyone else. It had to do with an apocalyptic type of thing going on, but it was a situation that was created by the government, and what they did was to drill into the Yellowstone caldera in specific points, planting nukes underground in that area and setting them off to create a volcanic eruption of the Yellowstone volcano. Now, I don't know how much the audience knows about that, but Yellowstone basically goes off every 640,000 years. Like clockwork, it's overdue. And when it goes off, it creates an extinction level event. So most of humanity, probably 2/3 or better, would be wiped out by such an event. So I had come up with a story and had written several, the first few chapters of the book. And my main character, the name of the main character that came to me was Fintan. Now, this is a name I had never heard of. I've never met anyone by that name, never heard that name, didn't know a thing about that name. But what happened was my computer later crashed with all of my story on it, and I just never picked it back up. But then I got to wondering, what is this Fintan? So I looked up the name Fintan and then came to realize that this was it's an Irish, like a Gaelic name, man's name. And there was a Fintan who survived a cataclysm, interestingly enough. He supposedly had several daughters by his wife, Cesar. It begins with a C. It looks like Cesar. But he only had one son, and he lost that son. And toward the end of his life, it was one of the things that kind of broke his heart, that he only had one son and he had lost his only son. Interesting parallel. I've lost a son. So here we have a story of a guy who survived the flood. Cesar she was the granddaughter of Noah, and she had built 3 arks of her own because she wasn't allowed onto Noah's ark. Now, it took years and years to build that ark. So she basically had a bunch of women that went with her and only 3 men, and Fintan was one of the men that went on the arks made by Cesar. So I'll read you the story of Fintan Mac Bochra. In the legends of old Irish mythology, Fintan Mac Bochra was renowned as being the first man in Ireland. Now, I think the legends say he was around 15 when this started. They did a 7-year journey making it to Ireland. He traveled with the granddaughter of Noah named Cesar, pronounced Cesar, who escaped at the time of the Great Flood. Cesar had been refused entry onto the ark by her grandfather, who was Noah, and so decided to create 3 arks of her own to escape the impending deluge. When Cesar was but 10 years old, her foster father, a priest in Egypt, well, she had a foster father, but she had a real father too, told her to gather together a group and set out in order to escape the flood that was soon to follow. So somehow these people, with the floods, this ties in with the biblical flood story. They knew a flood was coming, and we only got the story of Noah's Ark. She built a fleet of 3 ships, which she populated with as many capable women as she could find, each of whom possessed a different skill. When her own father, Bith, was refused entry onto the Ark, which was Noah's Ark, along with Fintan Mac Bochra and Ladra. So there's all your 3 men. That's the only 3 men. Cesar offered to bring these 3 men to safety as long as they acknowledged her leadership. They set sail for the land of destiny known as Ynys Fell, meaning Ireland. They hoped that since Ireland was as yet unpopulated by any man, that no sin could have ever been committed there, and so that place would be safe from the floods sent to cleanse the world of all evil. Their incredible journey was very perilous. It took 7 years, but finally they arrived in Ireland. It was the year 2361 BC, according to the annals of the 4 masters. But only 1 ship had survived the epic journey. In other words, they lost 2 of their ships. Excuse me. This containing 50 women and 3 men. Among the survivors was Fintan Mac Bochra. They decided to divide the women into 3 groups, each group to take 1 of the men to populate the new land. They also divided up the sheep that they had brought with them, and they were the first sheep to come to Ireland. Cesar allocated herself to Fintan's group. Banba, a great warrior woman, was the leader of Ladra's group. Ladra was a known pilot, a ship's pilot. This was a fantastic burden that had been placed onto these beleaguered men. And when both of his male companions died, it was left to Fintan to populate the new island alone, with the 50 women for which he was now responsible. Faced with such a huge task, he did what could be expected and fled. Fintan traveled deep into the Irish forest and hid out in a mountain cave in Tultine, I'm probably butchering the actual pronunciation, near the River Shannon in Tipperary. Okay, that is still on the map today. It is known as Fintan's Grave, and you can look that up if you're interested. There is a real cave called Fintan's Grave. When the flood eventually struck, he took the form of a salmon fish and then a hawk, surviving Ireland for over 5,000 years. So if you look more into the mythology, it talks about how Fintan was given a piece of fruit by a stranger at some point during this time before the flood hit, and from eating that fruit, he was given the ability to shapeshift. So Fintan was able to shapeshift. Some of the legends only talk about him turning into a salmon and a hawk. Some of them talk about how Fintan was able to shapeshift into any animal and had that ability. All right, so by this time, Fintan had developed the gift of shape-shifting and was easily able to transform from one creature to the next. So this story basically says he could do any of it. It is said that he gained much of his wisdom by being able to communicate with animals. So he was observing things and communicating with animals, and he learned a whole bunch of things. And he took their physical form. So Fintan means the wise, and Bochra means the sea. I've also looked up the name Fintan, and it says it's a baby name, male, and it means the little fair one. So the connection that Fintan had with the great oceans is paramount. He may have even been a son of the seas. Such was his longevity that he observed much of the history and events of old Ireland unfold before him. He thus became very knowledgeable of the ways of mankind. He was a bard of the ages, a sage, a seer, and a person of magnificent knowledge and wisdom. He advised the kings of Ireland. He helped the Firbolg king, Ilcéad Mac Bochra, when the Tuatha Dé Danann, it looks like Tuatha Dé Danann, attacked and fought in the first battle of Moytoir. Now, the Tuatha Dé Danann were a magical race that appeared out of nowhere after the flood and came. And it says that Fintan lived until the advent of St. Patrick and Christianity, and he departed the mortal realm. So there's the story of Fintan Mac Bochra, the first man of Ireland. And it was just interesting how that name had come up. I created an apocalyptic story out of my own before I ever knew anything about Fintan Mac Bochra or anything like that. So it was interesting, and so my sister did what she did with the shirt and put Fintan McKevin after I told her this story. So I don't know. How do memories come to you? Is there a cellular memory? Is there memory within your DNA? I don't know. Maybe he was a relative, far distant. I don't know. But there's the story of Fintan Mac Bochra. It's really interesting to read some of the old history, and congratulations, icebear. I will need your new address to send you that shirt because I think you moved, and I think I've only got your old address. So thank you very much for watching Atypical Hiker channel, and Merry Christmas. Hope to see you soon out on the trails.